Okay, so we're going to try to see if we can get this video done before the Amazon delivery guy comes running up to the front porch and my 300+ pound dogs go absolutely ballistic and bark at him. Scare him half to death and then he'll run off and do it all over again tomorrow. It's Jason Spangler with Wagner Meters coming to you from COVID Central and working from home. So a couple of phone calls that I've gotten lately, and they are kind of a common theme, if you will. Things that I get on a consistent basis, but they're, maybe little twists of the same thing. But I got one the other day that was a person who had called me and they were talking about concrete moisture testing. And what they wanted to know was they wanted to know how to test the leveling product. And I've had other calls where they talk about that they've put a second lift of concrete on top of the original slab. But in either application, they're wanting to know how to test that additional leveling layer that has been put on top of the original concrete slab. And it's interesting because I always go back to ask the question in many of these applications. I go back to ask them, did they test the original slab prior to doing any of this, any of this leveling slab? And it amazes me how many times I have people tell me, no, they did not. And so the question comes back to, well, if you go now, after you've gone to the time and effort to put this leveling product on top of the slab, if you go back now and you determine that's wet, what is it that you're going to do about it? And some of them kind of scratch their head a little bit about that. And you would have to check with the different manufacturers of the different leveling and mitigation products, but many of them will tell you that you need to physically be testing that moisture in the slab to determine if there is an initial moisture issue prior to putting any kind of leveling product on top of it, because many times you need to deal with that original problem, identify and deal with that original problem before you build on top of it, because after you've done that, if you identify an issue, with most products, you can't really go back and do any kind of mitigation to try to encapsulate that moisture. So moral of the story is make sure you're testing those initial slabs before you do anything to build on top of them. And then two, obviously, always go back to those original manufacturers and make sure that, make sure what their specifications are for using their leveling and or mitigation types of products. A second thing that I've actually seen or I've had common discussions about revolves around acclimation of wood and moisture testing of wood floors and wood subfloors. And the interesting thing is that I'll have people that will call me up and they'll say, and I actually had one the other day, call me up and they say, I'm getting these readings that are, 9.5% on the finished product, and I can't even remember to be honest, I can't even remember what the subfloor was, but they thought they were high because they were really had it in their head that they were a 6 to 8% is what they were shooting for. Well, after we got to having a discussion about the equilibrium moisture content and what really the moisture content of their wood should be, so what their target should be based on the relative humidity and temperature of the house, we found out that their target for their acclimated wood really was about 9.3%. So I guess the moral of the story there is, we hear a lot about wood needing to be 6 to 8% to install, or 6 to 8% to say that it's acclimated. And what I will say is that you really need to understand what the target is that you're shooting for based on the ambient relative humidity and temperature, and calculate what that equilibrium moisture content is for that wood. In order to use any kind of wood meter effectively, you really need to understand what the target moisture content is that you're physically looking for to determine whether or not it's okay to install. I also always refer back to quantity of readings and what the acceptability is of, or the variability is for relative or for the moisture content of the wood and subfloor, you'll find that, you know, you really do need to be taking 20 readings per 1,000 square feet of the subfloor, the wood subfloor that you're installing upon. And you need to be testing the wood floor at least 40 boards for every 1,000 square feet there. So that's based on NWFA guidelines. And then once you have that, as long as those parameters are within that calculated equilibrium moisture content, you can look at having on a strip floor about a 4% differential between the flooring and the subfloor, and on a plank floor, about a 2% differential between the flooring and the subfloor. So that kind of gives you an idea of what's acceptable as far as differences between a finished wood product and a wood subfloor. So those are just a couple of things, couple of recommendations, industry recommendations, couple of phone calls that we consistently get, themes that come about from the discussions as far as the phone calls. So I hope those help. Hope everybody's staying safe, and I'm sure that I will talk to you soon. Take care.